What's up, guys? It's your boy, still needs an intro, and today we're installing headers on the Magnum. Now I got these headers and these mid pipes off of Facebook Marketplace for a whopping $300. Now, to justify me spending that much money on the car, considering that's almost as much money as I paid for the straight pipe and the mid muffler delete combined, I'll throw up some screenshots really quick of how much they cost from the factory. So like the factory shorty headers are going to be up here somewhere, and then the mid pipes are down here. And then to compare them to aftermarket ones, the aftermarket shorty headers and then the aftermarket mid pipes, you see why I spent $300. So what today is basically going to be is taking the headers and mid pipes and then getting them ready to take them on up to M&M muffler so that they can be installed. I have my 2 boxes of hardware and miscellaneous items like gaskets and stuff right here, and so we're gonna open this up and see what we got. And voila. So in this is gonna be our header bolts and all of that stuff. You can see all of them already have Loctite on them, so that's nice. You have 2 different gaskets here, so this and this is going to be these gaskets replacement, and you can see it's kind of tattered up, I'm assuming from when they took it out of the car. And then I went ahead and just bought 2 so I can replace both sides. And then this right here is the big boy. These are the manifold gaskets for where it mates to the head of the engine. And the reason I'm replacing these is because the original ones are nice and used and pressed and cracked and stuff. So that's all of our hardware bits. And then this little package, this is our O2 sensor extenders. And so what this does is, since we are going to gut out the catalytic converter, there's all of that fun filtration stuff down in there. What this does is it will cause a bit of separation between the what previously was the catalytic converter and the O2 sensor, which will be over here on this side. So it'll cause a better reading, and the theory is that it's supposed to take away your check engine light from your O2 sensor. Now, the reason I got these in the 90-degree bend rather than the straight up ones is because I've seen in a lot of videos and read on forums and whatnot that when these are upright, it brings the sensor up about this tall off of the catalytic converter, and so it makes it very, very difficult to then reinstall after it's in place. So that's what the bend is for, so that you can just screw it out from up here rather than up here where there's a bunch of stuff in the way. Now, if you haven't quite noticed yet, this does not look like your typical aftermarket shorty header and mid pipe setup, and that is because these are actually headers and mid pipes off of a 2015 Charger Scat pack. And you can see these are in fact factory headers. Every exhaust port has its own tube that comes all the way down into a collector. Now, the reason I wanted to go with something 2015 and up is because there's a little bit of an extension off of the exhaust port, and this section is a little bit longer as well, so it just gives it that much more travel time to go from this port here, this port there, so on and so forth. Now I wanted to go with something kind of like what was on my dad's 300, because that is essentially the same setup, except the headers, ports aren't as big. The actual physical tubes aren't as big either. And then I could not find a header and mid-pipe setup on Craigslist, Marketplace, or even on eBay for a reasonable price. In order to put, whether it be the 6.1 headers, the 6.4 headers, 6.2 headers, or even an aftermarket header system, you have to get a corresponding mid-pipe, or else you're going to be charged a ton of money for a custom mid-pipe setup. And so I wanted to try and not do that as much as possible, and I found this setup on Facebook Marketplace for, again, a little over $300. Now I can already think of the next question that would be on some of your guys' mind: how much did the hardware cost? Now the reason I had to buy hardware is, you can see this is missing a lot. So what I'm going to do right after this is I'm going to install these studs that go through here, and then you thread your bolt on through the underside. On the driver's side header, and then as I stated before, I did need to buy gaskets anyway. That's just common practice. But then I also had to buy the studs because the person that sold them to me did not include the studs. So for all of the header bolts, all 16 of them, these two studs here, the O2 sensor extenders, and all 4 gaskets, it was a grand total of $130. Yeah. But again, on the whole saving money topic, even if I were to buy an aftermarket header system, a aftermarket or custom made catalytic converter mid-pipe setup, I would have had to buy this hardware anyway, or have to be charged extra with the setup. My point is, I was going to have to buy this stuff anyway, regardless of what header and mid-pipe setup I wanted to go with. So now comes the fun part of installing the 2 little studs that I showed you for the driver's side header, and then I'm also going to begin gutting out the catalytic converter. And then, since a shop cannot technically take off your catalytic converter and not put one back in its place, because in the state of Kansas we don't have emissions laws, we don't really have decibel readings like California. Since a shop cannot take off and not put back in new catalytic converters, because a shop can't even put used ones in its place, what I'm going to do is I'm going to either figure out how hard it's going to be to take off the catalytic converters on the Magnum, or if I really need to, I'll just go buy a new blade for my dad's saw and we'll hack it off the old-fashioned way. I hop on into our local family-owned Orscheln's Farm and Home, because for the O2 extender we need a drill bit to hollow out the hole. So, well, I'm not paying $10 for a little thing of anti-seize, so $5 at over at least. Quick shout out to my buddies at Orscheln's Farm and Home. I love those guys. Now before I go to put these in here, I'm going to put some of this anti-seize on there, just so that it's easier to take in and out, especially in the future if this needs to come off for some given reason. Now if anybody has ever worked with this stuff before, don't be dumb like me and choose not to use gloves. And, well, I guess we'll see how this goes. But if you've ever used this before, you know what's about to probably happen. So we're going to start off by taking the lid off, and it has this little tab on the end of it, and it's supposed to be used to poke this. We're gonna give a little jab to make our hole, and then the stuff is already starting to come out, so we are going to very gingerly try not to get it on our skin, because if you haven't caught on by now, this stuff is worse than glitter in the sense that it just gets everywhere. So here comes the annoying part. We're just gonna smear it around like so. We're only going to try and keep it on this finger because this stuff spreads faster than the coronavirus did. So, just like so, and we'll start threading it in the hole. And then if it starts getting caught, we'll back thread a little bit. Same thing, just go in and out and just kind of work it between the threads. Second one, same thing, try and get a little bit off of our fingers and start to thread it in. So now for the next step that I'm going to do, I'm going to remove these gaskets that are right here. So I'm going to take either a pick or a small flathead screwdriver and pop these out. And then I will take my wire brush and clean off the mating surface so that when Mike up at M&M Muffler reinstalls these, it'll be just a nice, clean, easy install. So that's what I'm going to do now. Look at that thing. I know I tore it up a little bit, but it's still like just super brittle. Number 2. Now the best way to go about taking out all of the material is to pretty much just take either a very large chisel or a large punch of some kind, and you just kind of go for it. So I will, I don't know if I'm going to record this because I don't want to make myself look like a fool if I start doing it wrong on the first or second try. But I will be sure to give updates as I'm going along. Let you know how I'm doing it and kind of like what I find to be the best plan of action to be. So, okay, I took a quick break from punching out the catalytic converters because it's hot outside. So in the meantime, while I was working on that, I took the O2 sensors and I drilled out the hole. You can see there, but I used a 1/4 inch drill bit because a lot of people say that you have to hollow out the entire brass section at the top, because this is the part that actually goes inside of the catalytic converter. But some people say, and they go ahead and drill out the entire thing, but on a couple forums that I was reading, they actually had more problems because there was still too much airflow getting to the O2 sensor. So they recommended drilling out about half of the material rather than all of it. And so that's what I did. But if we have problems with it in the future, it'll be just right there on the bottom side of the engine, and I'll be able to take it out and re-drill it. And that right there is all of the material out of the converters. You can look inside the pipes. Tell that there is nothing in there anymore. So what I ended up doing is taking this super long pry bar and I stuck the chisel end inside of the converter. Then I hit the opposite side with a hammer, and then I kind of used this to my advantage since there's a curve, so I was able to kind of get it in there at an angle and still chip along the walls where all the fiberglass and stuff is. So now I'm going to take the O2 sensor extenders, put a little anti-seize on them, and then put them inside of the newly gutted converters. Okay, it's the next morning. It's very wet outside, but I did a quick once over of the car just to make sure it looked like I didn't live in it. But now I'm going to load up all of my stuff. I'm going to double and triple check that I have everything, and then we're going to head up there. Oh, and by the way, with open manifolds, Magnum is very, very loud, so fair warning. Oh, Jesus Christ! Oh my God! Damn! It's been a long drive. Okay, pulling onto the highway. God, this thing is ridiculously loud right now. That was only 2,500 RPMs. I'm cruising at 50 right now. And yeah, this is a bit ridiculous. There's our exit. Alright, drive's almost over. And for the millionth time, I'm filming the outro the day that I'm uploading this. But this is just part one of the header install. Again, like I said at the beginning of the video, this is me just getting the headers and stuff prepared. And dropping the car off at M&M Muffler. So if you want to be here for part two, make sure you drop a like and share it with your friends, and consider subscribing. Click over here and hit the notification bell so that you get notified for the next video. If you want to see what YouTube recommends you watch next, click over here. And as always, I look forward to seeing you guys next time.